The transport ship shook as it came out of hyperspace. Taehyun Kim looked out the small window and saw the biggest space station he had ever seen. It was shaped like a giant ring with thousands of lights blinking on its surface. Other ships moved around it like tiny insects around a lamp. Nexus Prime Academy, said the ship's computer in a voice that sounded like tinkling bells. Please prepare for docking procedures. Daehyun stretched in his seat and yawned. The trip from Earth had taken 3 days, but he had slept through most of it. He looked at his 2 friends sitting nearby. Heejin Park was reading a book about alien plants while Woobin Lee stared out another window with wide eyes. I can't believe we're really here, Woobin whispered. The most famous survival school in the galaxy. Heejin closed her book and smiled. My grandfather always said the best way to learn is to jump into deep water. I guess this is pretty deep water, Daehyun laughed. It's just school. How hard can it be? The docking process took another hour. When they finally walked off the ship, they found themselves in a huge hall filled with the strangest creatures they had ever seen. There were beings made of what looked like living crystal, others that seemed to be made of water, and some that looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. A tall lizard-like creature approached them. It wore a military uniform covered in medals and ribbons. Its yellow eyes looked them up and down with what might have been disappointment. I am Commander Vorthak, it said in a deep, rumbling voice. You must be the humans from the death world called Earth. Yes, sir, Daehyun replied, bowing slightly the way his mother had taught him to greet elders. Commander Vorthak's head tilted to one side. Interesting. You show respect even though you come from a world that kills most visitors within hours. Tell me, human, how many of your kind survived to adulthood on your planet? Most of us? Daehyun answered, confused by the question. The commander's eyes grew wider. He made some notes on a glowing tablet. Most, I see. And you 3? You have experience with extreme survival situations? Woobin shrugged. I worked on fishing boats during summer vacation. Does that count? Fishing boats, the commander repeated slowly, making more notes. On your death world ocean, with the acid rain and the predator fish and the crushing pressure. Acid rain? Heejin asked. Oh, you mean regular rain? It's not really acidic unless there's pollution, and the fish aren't that dangerous if you know what you're doing. Commander Vorthak stared at her for a long moment. Then he led them through the station to a large room filled with other students. The humans drew stares from every creature they passed. Some pointed and whispered. Others moved away as if the humans might explode. In the orientation room, they sat with about 50 other students. Most of them wore special suits or breathing masks. A few floated in tanks of colored liquid. The humans sat in regular chairs wearing their normal clothes. A creature that looked like it was made of living glass floated to the front of the room. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. Welcome to Nexus Prime Academy, it said. I am Instructor Liss. You are here because your species consider you the best survival candidates they could send. Over the next 6 months, you will face challenges that will test every limit of your physical and mental abilities. The crystal being gestured to a large screen that showed pictures of terrible-looking places. There were worlds covered in ice, planets with rivers of lava, and moons with poisonous air. The survival rate for our complete program is 23%, Instructor Liss continued. Many of you will not make it to graduation. This is not a failure. This academy is designed to break students, to find the absolute limits of what your species can endure. A student in the front row, who looked like a giant seahorse wearing golden armor, raised one fin. Instructor Liss, what about the humans? Their planet is rated Class 12 on the danger scale. How will the tests be fair for them? Instructor Liss turned its glowing attention to Daehyun, Heejin, and Woobin. That is an excellent question, Prince Zelion. The humans will take the same tests as everyone else. We have made no special accommodations. Prince Zelion's armor made worried clicking sounds, but that seems dangerous for the rest of us. If they can survive a Class 12 death world, won't our tests be too easy for them? We shall see, Instructor Liss replied. Now let us begin with basic orientation exercises. The first test was called mild temperature variance. Students were led to a room where the temperature would change from 50 degrees to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of the alien students put on special suits with heating and cooling systems. Don't you need environmental gear? Asked a student who looked like a walking tree with too many eyes. Daehyun looked at his friends, who shrugged. This feels like spring weather, he said. Actually, it's pretty nice. The test began. Around them, Alien students started sweating or shivering as the temperature moved up and down. Some of them called for medical help when it reached 65 degrees. A few fainted when it hit 70. The humans stood in the middle of the room chatting about what they wanted for lunch. "Is this the hardest part?" Wu Bin asked a passing instructor. The instructor, a creature that looked like a floating brain with tentacles, made worried bubbling sounds. "This is just the warm-up exercise. The real tests start tomorrow." "Cool," said Heejin. "I brought some good books to read." The second orientation test was low oxygen simulation. The room's air was changed to have only 18% oxygen instead of the usual 21% that humans were used. To alien students began gasping and using emergency breathing equipment. Some collapsed and had to be carried out by medical teams. The humans barely noticed the difference. "Actually," Dae-hyun said, "this feels like the air in Seoul on a smoggy day, maybe a little cleaner." Commander Vorthak watched from an observation window above. He turned to Instructor Liss with a worried expression. "Are you certain our tests are working correctly?" he asked. "All equipment is functioning perfectly," Instructor Liss replied in its chiming voice. "Perhaps we underestimated what Deathworld survivor means." Or, Commander Vorthak said slowly, "perhaps we have never encountered real Deathworld survivors before." By the end of the first day, word had spread throughout the academy about the 3 humans who treated orientation exercises like a pleasant walk in the park. Other students began following them around, taking notes and asking questions. "How do you survive temperature changes without equipment?" asked a student made of what looked like living metal. "Layers," Heejin replied simply. "When it's cold, put on more clothes. When it's warm, take some off." The metal student frantically wrote this down as if it were the most important discovery in galactic history. As they walked to their dormitory that evening, Wu Bin looked around at all the alien technology and advanced equipment. "You know," he said to his friends, "I think we might be a little overdressed for this place." The alarm woke everyone at 6 in the morning. Red lights flashed in the hallways as Commander Vorthak's voice boomed through the speakers. "All students report to Survival Chamber 1 immediately. Today we begin real training." Dae-hyun rolled out of bed and put on his regular clothes. In the next room, he could hear alien students putting on what sounded like heavy equipment. Metal clanked against metal and breathing machines hissed to life. When they reached the chamber, they found a line of students wearing full environmental suits. Some had tanks of special air strapped to their backs. Others wore thick armor that made them look like walking refrigerators. "Where's your gear?" asked Prince Zelian, his golden armor gleaming under the lights. "What gear?" Wu Bin asked back. Prince Zelian pointed at the massive suits that other students wore. "Protection. The furnace chamber reaches temperatures that can melt most organic matter." Instructor Liss floated up to them. "Humans, you will need environmental suits for this exercise. The temperature inside reaches 140 degrees Fahrenheit with toxic sulfur gases." Haijin wrinkled her nose. "Toxic sulfur? Like rotten eggs?" "Much worse," Instructor Liss replied. "The gases can dissolve lung tissue in minutes." "Okay," Dae-hyun said. "But 140 degrees isn't that hot. That's like a really hot summer day in Daegu." Instructor Liss made a sound like breaking crystal. "A summer day? On your planet?" "Well, with humidity it feels hotter," Wu Bin added helpfully. "Sometimes it gets up to 150 with the heat index." Several alien students fainted. Medical teams rushed in to help them. Commander Vorthak stepped forward. "Humans, I must insist you wear protection. This chamber has killed students before." "If you really want us to," Dae-hyun said, not wanting to be rude. They put on basic environmental suits, though they left the heating and cooling systems turned off. The suits felt heavy and uncomfortable compared to their normal clothes. The chamber door opened with a loud hiss. Heat poured out like opening an oven. The alien students' suits immediately started working harder, fans whirring and cooling systems pumping. Inside the chamber, the walls glowed red hot. Yellow smoke filled the air and the smell of sulfur was so strong it made eyes water. Alien students moved slowly and carefully, their suits beeping warnings every few seconds. Dae-hyun took off his helmet after a few minutes. "This is better," he said, breathing the sulfur air normally. "The suit was making me sweat." "Put that back on," shrieked a student who looked like a giant butterfly with metal wings. "You'll die!" "It smells bad," Hyejin agreed, also removing her helmet. "But it's not worse than the subway in summer." Wu Bin joined them, leaving his helmet off too. Actually, this reminds me of the hot springs near my grandmother's house. She always said sulfur water was good for your skin. The butterfly student collapsed in shock. Around the chamber, alien students struggled to complete simple tasks like walking from one end to the other. Some of them had to be carried out when their equipment failed. Others could only stay inside for a few minutes before the heat became too much. The humans completed every task easily and started doing extra exercises. Daehyun began doing push-ups on the hot floor. "This is good warm-up," he said, breathing normally while alien students gasped for air through their machines. "Gets the blood moving." An instructor who looked like a walking cactus made with metal spines approached them carefully. "How are you not dying?" it asked in a voice like grinding gears. "From what?" Hyejin asked. She had found a wall where the temperature was cooler and was stretching like she was getting ready for morning exercise. "The heat, the poison, the burning air." "Oh," Wubin said. "You mean this? My uncle's rice wine is worse than this air, and the heat is nice, like a sauna." The cactus instructor made sparking sounds and walked away quickly. After the furnace chamber, they moved to the frost chamber. This room was designed to copy the worst winter conditions on ice planets. The temperature dropped to 40 degrees below zero, and wind machines created a storm that could knock over small buildings. Most alien students needed heated suits that looked like small spaceships. Their equipment had to warm their breathing air and keep their blood from freezing. "Now this is more like it," Hyejin said as they entered the chamber. She was wearing her normal jacket and seemed completely comfortable. "This feels like winter camping with my grandfather." Snow and ice filled the air so thick they could barely see. The wind howled like angry spirits. Alien students huddled together, their heating systems working at maximum power. Hyejin knelt down and started building something with the snow. Within minutes, she had made a small shelter that blocked most of the wind. "Anyone want to learn how to build a snow cave?" she called out to the struggling alien students. A creature that looked like a walking jellyfish in a heated bubble suit crawled over to them. "Please," it said in a weak voice. "My heating system is failing." Hyejin helped it into the snow shelter and showed it how to use body heat and proper positioning to stay warm. Soon other alien students were abandoning their expensive equipment to crowd into the simple snow cave. "How did you know how to do this?" asked Prince Zelian, his golden armor frosted over with ice. "Grandfather taught me when I was 7, Hyejin replied. "He said anyone who lives in the mountains should know how to survive in snow." "At age 7? Prince Zelian's voice cracked. "Your people teach survival skills to children?" "Basic stuff," Hyejin said. "How to find shelter, which plants you can eat, how to purify water, first aid." "Don't all schools teach this?" The jellyfish creature made sobbing sounds. "My species considers basic environmental suits to be advanced technology." While alien students struggled with the cold, Daehyun had found icicles forming on the chamber walls. He broke one off and started eating it like a popsicle. "Don't do that," screamed an instructor. "That ice is contaminated with alien bacteria." "It tastes fine," Daehyun said. "Actually, it's pretty clean. Better than some of the water we drank on camping trips." The instructor made choking sounds and called for medical teams. The final test of the day was the pressure chamber. This room copied the conditions at the bottom of deep oceans, where the weight of water could crush metal. Alien students wore suits that looked like small submarines. The equipment was so heavy that some students needed machines to help them walk. "How deep are we going?" Wubin asked as they put on basic pressure suits. "The equivalent of 3,000 feet underwater," Commander Vorthak replied. "The pressure will be 30 times normal atmospheric levels." Wubin nodded. "That's pretty deep. I usually only freedive to about 60 feet when I'm fishing for abalone." "Freedive?" Commander Vorthak's voice went up several octaves. "Without equipment?" "Sure, you hold your breath and swim down. It's not that hard if you practice." Commander Vorthak made notes on his tablet with shaking claws. Inside the pressure chamber, alien students moved like they were made of lead. Their suits groaned and creaked under the pressure. Some students could only last a few minutes before the weight became too much. Wubin took off his pressure suit completely. "What are you doing?" shouted Instructor Liss. "You'll be crushed." Wubin took a deep breath and held it. Then he sat down in a meditation position and closed his eyes. He stayed like that for 8 minutes, perfectly still and calm. When he finally breathed out, every alien in the chamber was staring at him. "That felt good," he said. "Can we make it deeper?" "This feels like swimming in the shallow end." 3 more alien students fainted. That evening, as they walked back to their rooms, they found a crowd of alien students following them. The aliens kept a respectful distance and took notes on everything the humans did. "Why are they watching us?" Daehyun asked. "I think," Heejin said slowly, "they're trying to figure out how we're still alive." The third week at Nexus Prime Academy started with what the instructors called the toxicity trials, Commander. Vorthak announced this with the same tone someone might use to announce a funeral. "These tests will expose you to the most dangerous substances known to galactic civilization," he said to the assembled students. "We have lost more students in this section than any other." The alien students looked terrified. Many of them had brought extra medical equipment and emergency supplies. Some had even written what looked like last letters to their families. Daehyun, Heejin, and Woobin sat in their regular clothes, looking relaxed. "Should we be worried?" Woobin whispered to his friends. "Probably not more than usual," Heejin replied. The first test was the radiation chamber. The room was designed to copy the cosmic radiation found near neutron stars, which could kill most life forms in minutes. Alien students wore suits that looked like small buildings. The lead line protection was so heavy that some students needed mechanical help to move. Even with all this protection, they could only stay in the chamber for 15 minutes at most. "Humans," Instructor Liss said, "you will need the strongest radiation suits we have. This level of exposure is lethal to all known organic life." "How much radiation are we talking about?" Daehyun asked. Instructor Liss showed them numbers on a screen. 5,000 rads per hour. The humans looked at the numbers and shrugged. "That's it?" Hyejin asked. "I get more radiation than that flying in airplanes back home." "That's impossible," said a student who looked like a walking tree made of silver metal. "No organic life can survive that level of exposure." "Well," Woobin said, "humans live under a yellow star. We get radiation all the time. That's why we have sunscreen." The tree student made sounds like breaking branches. Inside the radiation chamber, alien students moved carefully and slowly. Their heavy suits beeped constantly with radiation warnings. Some students had to leave after only a few minutes when their equipment detected dangerous levels. The humans walked around normally. Taehyun even asked if anyone had brought sunscreen, which made Instructor Liss make sounds like shattering glass. "This is actually kind of relaxing," Heejin said, sitting down to read a book. "Like sunbathing, but indoors." A student who looked like a giant slug in a lead-lined tank started crying radioactive tears. After an hour in the radiation chamber, the humans showed no signs of radiation sickness. Meanwhile, 3 alien students had to be taken to the medical bay and 2 more needed emergency treatment for radiation poisoning. "How are you not dying?" asked Prince Zelian through his suit's radio. His golden armor now had 6 inches of lead coating. "Dying from what?" Daehyun asked back. "The radiation. It's cooking your DNA." "Our DNA is pretty tough," Woobin explained. "It has to be living on Earth. The sun tries to cook our DNA every day." Prince Zelian's radio made static sounds that might have been sobbing. The second test was chemical warfare simulation. The chamber filled with gases and liquids that were considered deadly to all known life forms. "These substances can dissolve organic matter on contact," Commander Vorthak explained. "Even trace amounts are lethal. You will wear our most advanced protective suits." The alien students looked like they were going to war. Their suits had multiple layers of protection and independent air supplies. Some students needed teams of helpers to get their equipment on. The humans put on basic chemical suits, but left most of the systems turned off. The first chemical released was something called Universal Solvent Alpha. It was supposed to dissolve any organic material it touched. "This stuff smells familiar," Hyejin said, sniffing the air through her suit's filters. "Reminds me of cleaning supplies," Daehyun agreed. "Or that really strong soap my mother uses on stubborn stains," Woobin added. Around them, alien students were panicking. Even tiny amounts of the chemical were making their suits trigger emergency alarms. The humans took off their helmets. "Don't do that," screamed every instructor at once. "It's fine," Hyejin said, breathing the chemical air normally. "It's like bleach, but weaker." "Bleach?" Commander Vorthak's voice cracked completely. "You know what bleach is?" "Of course," Daehyun said. "We use it to clean bathrooms. My mom keeps a bottle under the kitchen sink." Several alien students fainted inside their protective suits. The next chemical was even worse. It was called metabolic poison omega. and was supposed to shut down all biological processes. "This is definitely familiar," Wu Bin said, still without his helmet. "It smells like that hot sauce my uncle makes." "The really spicy one?" Haijin asked. "Yeah, the one that burned a hole in the metal pot." "Oh, I love that stuff," Daehyun said. "Does anyone have crackers? This smell is making me hungry." A student who looked like a walking flower with too many petals began wilting dramatically. The instructors released the final chemical. This one was supposed to be so toxic that even the name was classified. It could supposedly kill any living thing just by being in the same room. The humans sniffed the air thoughtfully. "Alcohol," they all said at the same time. "Very strong alcohol," Hyejin added, "like the rice wine from Wu Bin's village. The stuff that can run car engines?" Daehyun asked. "That's the one," Wu Bin confirmed. "My grandfather used to drink this for breakfast." Commander Vorthak was taking so many notes that his tablet started smoking. The third and final test was the biological hazard chamber. This room was filled with bacteria, viruses, and other microscopic life forms that were considered universally lethal. "These organisms can kill most species within hours," Instructor Liss warned. "They attack the immune system directly and cannot be fought with technology." The alien students wore environmental suits that looked like spaceships. Their protection systems included air purifiers, sterilization fields, and emergency medical equipment. The humans wore basic biological protection suits, but again turned off most of the systems. Inside the chamber, the air was thick with microscopic death. Alien students moved like they were walking through a minefield. Some of them were already showing signs of infection despite their heavy protection. The humans took off their helmets and breathed normally. "This actually feels pretty good," Daehyun said, "like there are some good probiotics in here." "Probiotics?" asked a student who looked like a giant brain with tentacles. "Good bacteria," Hyejin explained. "Helps with digestion. We eat bacteria all the time on Earth." "You eat bacteria?" The brain student's tentacles turned white with shock. "Sure," Wu Bin said. "Yogurt, kimchi, fermented foods. Bacteria is good for you if you get the right kind. But these bacteria are designed to kill." The brain student protested. "Yeah, but our immune systems are pretty good at dealing with stuff like this," Daehyun said. "We've been fighting bacteria and viruses for millions of years." After 2 hours in the biological chamber, the humans seemed healthier than when they went in. Daehyun said his sinuses felt clearer, and Haijin mentioned that her allergies were gone. Meanwhile, half the alien students had to be evacuated with severe infections, and the other half were on emergency medical treatment. That evening, Instructor Liss called a private meeting with Commander Vorthak. "I've been studying the humans," Instructor Liss said, its crystal body flickering with worried colors. "I thought they must be using some kind of advanced nanotechnology or genetic enhancement." "And?" Commander Vorthak asked. "They're not. These are just normal humans from Earth. What they consider normal conditions would kill most galactic species instantly." Commander Vorthak looked at his notes. Pages and pages of observations about human capabilities. "So when we classified Earth as a Class 12 death world," he said slowly, "we may have underestimated it." Instructor Liss replied, "I'm beginning to think Earth might be the most dangerous planet in known space. And these 3 humans think it's just home? They asked me today if the Academy had any real challenges, or if everything here was going to be this easy." Commander Vorthak put his head in his claws. It was going to be a long semester. The 4th phase of training at Nexus Prime Academy was called Psychological Endurance Trials. Commander Vorthak announced this with what seemed like desperate hope in his voice. "Surely," he muttered to Instructor Liss, "mental challenges will be different. The humans may survive physical trials, but psychology is universal." Instructor Liss made doubtful chiming sounds. "Perhaps. But I have reviewed their files. Human entertainment includes something called horror movies that they watch for fun." Commander Vorthak's hope began to fade. The first test was the isolation chamber. Students were placed in complete sensory deprivation for what galactic psychologists considered the maximum safe time. 6 hours. Most species began hallucinating after 4 hours and suffered permanent mental damage after 8. The alien students prepared like they were going into battle. They brought meditation aids, mental exercises, and emergency psychological support equipment. Some species required constant low-level stimulation just to remain sane. "What exactly happens in there?" Hyejin asked as they prepared for the test. Complete darkness, silence, and isolation, Commander Vorthak explained. No sight, sound, touch, taste, or smell. Your mind will be completely alone with itself. So like meditation? Wu Bin asked. Meditation is guided mental exercise with external anchors. Instructor Liss replied. This is complete sensory void. Most species experience terror, hallucinations, and mental breakdown. Sounds relaxing, Daehyun said. I haven't had quiet time to think in weeks. The isolation chambers looked like large eggs made of dark metal. One by one, students were sealed inside. Within hours, alien students began requesting emergency extraction. Some came out screaming. Others emerged catatonic and needed immediate medical care. Prince Zelian lasted 4 hours before his golden armor's emergency systems activated automatically, flooding his chamber with lights and sounds to prevent mental collapse. A student who looked like a walking crystal formation made it 5 hours but came out, flickering random colors and speaking in mathematical equations. The humans were placed in their chambers and the 6-hour timer began. After 6 hours, the chambers opened automatically. The humans stepped out looking refreshed and relaxed. That was nice, Hyejin said, stretching like she had just woken up from a good nap. Finally got some peace and quiet to organize my thoughts. I redesigned a fusion reactor in my head, Daehyun added cheerfully. Had some ideas about improving the magnetic containment system. I composed 17 haikus about the ocean, Wu Bin said. Want to hear them? The medical teams rushed over with psychological evaluation equipment, expecting to find signs of mental trauma or hallucination. How do you feel? Asked the lead psychiatrist, a creature that looked like a floating brain in a glass tank. Great. All 3 humans replied at the same time. Any hallucinations? Voices? Visions? Terror responses? Nope, Daehyun said. Just had time to think without distractions. But you were alone with your thoughts for 6 hours. The psychiatrist bubbled in disbelief. Yeah, it was wonderful, Hyejin said. I finally figured out the solution to that plant genetics problem I've been working on. The psychiatrist's brain turned several concerning colors. The second test was fear simulation. Advanced holographic systems created scenarios designed to trigger the deepest terror responses in any known species. These simulations will tap into your species' most primal fears, Commander Vorthak explained. Predation, natural disasters, environmental collapse. The scenarios are based on actual events from Deathworlds across the galaxy. The alien students were given sedatives and psychological support equipment before entering the simulation chambers. Many requested legal documents releasing the Academy from liability for mental trauma. What kind of scary stuff are we talking about? Wu Bin asked. Commander Vorthak activated a preview screen. It showed massive storms with winds over 100 miles per hour, earthquakes that split the ground open, and huge predatory animals attacking helpless prey. Oh, Hyejin said, looking at the screen. These are all from Earth, aren't they? Commander Vorthak checked his notes. Actually, yes. We used data from your homeworld to create the most terrifying scenarios possible. But these are just Tuesday on Earth, Daehyun pointed out. Tuesday? Commander Vorthak's voice cracked. Well, maybe not all at once, Daehyun corrected himself. That would be more like typhoon season. The first alien student entered the fear simulation. Within minutes, emergency alarms sounded. The student was found curled in a corner, sobbing and speaking in what sounded like baby talk. What scenario caused this breakdown? Instructor Liss asked. Category 1, hurricane simulation, came the reply. Category 1, Hyejin asked. That's the weakest kind of hurricane. Those are barely worth staying inside for. Barely worth staying inside for? Commander Vorthak shouted. Several more alien students tried the simulations. Most lasted less than 10 minutes. The scenarios included earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, thunderstorms, and wild animal encounters. Each time an alien student was evacuated in psychological distress, the humans asked what had happened. Lightning strike simulation, the medics would report. Oh, that's not so bad, Wu Bin would say. At least it's quick. Tornado encounter scenario. Were they in the path or just watching? Daehyun would ask. Because watching tornadoes can be pretty cool if you're at a safe distance. Predator attack simulation featuring earth creatures called bears. What kind of bears? Hyejin would wonder. Black bears are pretty harmless if you don't bother them. Brown bears you have to be more careful with. Did they teach the students how to make noise so the bears know they're coming? The medical teams began requiring extra psychological support just from listening to the humans' casual responses. When the humans entered the fear simulations, they walked through scenarios that had traumatized dozens of alien students. In the hurricane simulation, they critiqued the special effects. "The lightning looks fake," Wu Bin said. "Real lightning is brighter, and the wind sound is wrong," He Jin added. "Real typhoons make more of a howling noise. The rain is too light too," Dae-hyun noted. "In real hurricanes, the rain hits you like bullets." In the earthquake simulation, they gave safety tips. "You want to get under something sturdy?" He Jin explained to the simulation technicians who were watching. "Door frames are good if you don't have a desk. And stay away from windows," Wu Bin added. "This earthquake is only about a magnitude 6, Dae-hyun said. "You can barely feel those unless you're sitting still." The volcanic eruption simulation actually made them homesick. "This reminds me of Mount Hala," Jin said fondly. "We used to hike there when I was little. The lava looks realistic," Wu Bin agreed. "Though real volcanic ash smells different, more sulfurous. Can we turn up the heat?" Dae-hyun asked. "This feels like a mild spring day." The final psychological test was social hierarchy challenge. Students were placed in stressful group situations and forced to establish dominance and cooperation patterns while under extreme pressure. The alien students had studied this test extensively. Most species had complex social rules about hierarchy, territory, and resource competition. The test was designed to break down these social structures and create conflict. The scenario placed students in a survival situation with limited resources. They had to work together while competing for supplies, shelter, and leadership positions. Most alien species immediately began establishing dominance through displays of strength, technology, or inherited status. Prince Zillion tried to take charge based on his royal bloodline. The crystal students attempted to create authority through superior intellect. The mechanical students offered advanced technology in exchange for leadership. This usually led to conflict, stress, and eventual breakdown of cooperation. The humans approached the problem differently. "Okay," Dae-hyun said to the mixed group of aliens assigned to them. "What does everyone need to survive?" Instead of competing for dominance, they started organizing resources based on actual need. Instead of establishing hierarchy, they began teaching skills. Jin showed other students how to identify safe water sources. Wu Bin taught basic first aid and emergency shelter construction. Dae-hyun helped optimize the group's limited technology. Within hours, the alien students stopped trying to establish dominance over the humans and instead began following their lead voluntarily. "How are you doing this?" asked a student who looked like a walking cactus made of silver metal. "You're not trying to dominate us, but we all want to do what you say." "Leadership isn't about being in charge," Jin explained while bandaging the cactus student's damaged metal spines. "It's about taking care of everyone." "But how do you establish authority without displays of power?" Prince Zelian asked. "You don't need authority if people trust you," Wu Bin replied, sharing his emergency food supplies with students who had run out. "And people trust you if you actually help them," Dae-hyun added, fixing a broken piece of alien technology with spare parts and creative engineering. By the end of the test, every alien student in their group was following human leadership voluntarily. More importantly, the group had achieved perfect cooperation without any of the stress or conflict the test was designed to create. Commander Vorthak watched the results with growing amazement. They're not just surviving the psychological tests. The final test at Nexus Prime Academy was called the Gauntlet, Commander Vorthak announced, it with the tone of someone who had given up all hope but was going through the motions anyway. "This is a month-long survival scenario on Barren Moon. Sigma 7, he explained to the assembled students. It combines every challenge you have faced here. Environmental hazards, toxic exposure, psychological pressure, and resource scarcity. The moon was a lifeless rock with no atmosphere, extreme temperature swings, and radiation levels that required constant protection. Students would be dropped with minimal supplies and forced to survive using only their training. Most classes lose 60% of students during the gauntlet," Instructor Liss added. "It is designed to find the absolute limits of what your species can endure." The alien students looked terrified. Many had already started writing final messages to their families. Some requested additional life insurance. Dae-hyun, Jin, and Wu Bin looked at each other and shrugged. "Sounds like camping." Haijin said. Camping on a moon, Wu Bin corrected. Still camping, Daehyun replied. The first week was brutal for the alien students. The moon's surface temperature swung from 200 degrees below zero at night to 150 degrees above zero during the day. Most students required constant supply drops of food, water, and replacement equipment. Prince Zelian's golden armor kept malfunctioning in the extreme conditions. He needed emergency rescue twice when his heating system failed during the lunar night. The crystal students found that their bodies cracked in the temperature changes. They spent most of their time huddled in emergency shelters, barely surviving. The mechanical students discovered that their technology broke down quickly in the harsh environment. They needed replacement parts delivered every few days. The humans set up camp near a crater that provided some shelter from the worst winds. They used rocks and salvaged materials to build a comfortable base. This is actually pretty nice, Heejin said on day 3, tending a small garden. She had started using seeds from their emergency supplies and compost made from waste materials. No bugs, no weather, no noise pollution. The gravity is lighter too, Wu Bin added, enjoying the fact that he could jump much higher than on Earth. Makes carrying water easier. And the view is amazing, Daehyun said, looking up at the stars that were visible even during the day because of the lack of atmosphere. By the end of the first week, alien students were already requesting evacuation. Some had suffered equipment failures that left them stranded. Others couldn't handle the psychological pressure of being alone on a dead world. The humans were thriving. On day 7, while alien students rationed their pre-packaged nutrition bars, Haijin had identified 17 different minerals in the moon rock that could supplement their diet. She had also designed a water recycling system that could purify and reuse every drop of moisture. How did you know these rocks were edible? Asked a student who looked like a walking tree with metal bark. They're not exactly edible, Haijin explained, but they contain minerals our bodies need. Back home, people take supplements with the same stuff. You eat rocks on your planet? Not rocks exactly. But we get minerals from soil, plants that grow in soil, animals that eat plants. It's all connected. The tree student made confused creaking sounds. On day 14, while alien students struggled with equipment failures, Daehyun had built a solar power collection system, using salvaged materials and basic engineering principles. The system not only powered their camp but produced extra energy they could share with other students. How did you build this without proper tools? Asked Prince Zelian, whose armor was running low on power again. You don't need fancy tools if you understand the principles, Daehyun replied, tightening a connection with a piece of bent metal. My grandfather taught me to fix things with whatever was available. Your grandfather was an engineer? Farmer. But farmers have to fix everything themselves. Tractors, irrigation systems, electrical problems. If you can't fix it, crops die. Prince Zelian stared at the improvised solar collector that was more efficient than his royal armor's built-in power systems. On day 21, while other students fought over limited supplies, Wu Bin had established trade networks between the different alien groups scattered across the moon's surface. He helped settle resource disputes and taught conflict resolution. Why are you helping everyone instead of just your own team? Asked a student who looked like a giant butterfly with metal wings. Because if everyone does well, we all do better, Wu Bin explained. Besides, it's easier to survive when you have friends. But this is supposed to be a competition. Who said it was a competition? The moon is the enemy, not each other. The butterfly student's wings made confused clicking sounds. Then, on day 22, everything changed. A massive solar flare erupted from the nearby star. The Academy's orbital station lost most of its power systems. Communication arrays failed. Life support systems began shutting down. What started as a training exercise became a real emergency. Commander Vorthak's voice crackled through the few working communication systems. All students, this is a real emergency. Solar activity has damaged our primary systems. We are working to restore power and life support, but evacuation may not be possible for several days. On the moon's surface, alien students panicked. Without regular supply drops and technical support, most of them would die within hours. The humans calmly assessed the situation. Okay, Daehyun said. We need to get everyone to shelter and pool our resources. I'll work on expanding the water recycling system, Haijin said. We'll need to support more people. I'll coordinate the groups and set up supply distribution, Wu Bin added. While Academy instructors struggled to regain control of their damaged station, the humans organized a moon-wide rescue operation. They guided alien students to the most sheltered locations. They shared their food production and water purification systems. They used Daehyun's power generation setup to charge critical life support equipment. Most importantly, they kept everyone calm and organized while the professional rescue teams figured out how to fix their broken technology. "How do you know what to do?" asked Prince Zelian, whose armor was now completely dead. He was surviving only because the humans had given him emergency shelter and supplies. "This is just disaster response," Heejin replied, checking on a group of crystal students who were having trouble with the temperature changes. "Every school on Earth teaches this stuff. Disaster response? You know, what to do when bad things happen. Earthquakes, hurricanes, power outages, floods. Someone has to keep things organized until help arrives. Your schools teach children how to handle disasters? Basic stuff," Daehyun said, rigging a communication booster to help the Academy re-establish contact with isolated student groups. First aid, emergency shelter, resource management. Leadership under pressure. "We thought those were advanced military skills," Prince Zelion whispered. "On Earth, they're just life skills," Wubin replied. After 3 days, Academy rescue teams finally managed to restore enough power to begin emergency evacuations. When they reached the moon's surface, they expected to find chaos, casualties, and desperate students barely clinging to life. Instead, they found a well-organized community with functioning infrastructure, efficient resource distribution, and remarkably high morale. Every single student had survived. More than survived. Many of them were healthier and happier than when the emergency started. "How is this possible?" Instructor Liss asked, its crystal body flickering with amazement. "The humans took charge," Prince Zelian explained. "They turned a disaster into a community project." Commander Vorthak found Daehyun, Heejin, and Wubin calmly dismantling their improvised systems and packing up their supplies. "You three," he said slowly, "just turned our worst-case scenario into a success story." "It wasn't that bad," Heejin said. "We've been through worse camping trips." "Worse camping trips?" "Well, that time we got caught in a typhoon while hiking Mount Jiri was pretty intense." Wubin remembered. "And the week we spent in the mountains when that earthquake knocked out all the roads," Taehyun added. "Or spring break when the volcano erupted and we had to help with evacuations," Heejin said. Commander Vorthak sat down heavily on a moon rock. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that real emergencies on your planet are worse than our worst-case training scenarios." "Usually," all 3 humans replied at the same time. "And you handle them as recreational activities?" "Not recreational exactly," Daehyun corrected. "But they're just part of life, you know? Bad stuff happens, you deal with it, you help your neighbors, you move on." Commander Vorthak looked around at the improvised community the humans had built. Alien students were sharing resources, helping each other pack, and exchanging contact information like they were old friends. "You didn't just survive the gauntlet," he realized. "You made it irrelevant." 2 weeks later, back at Nexus Prime Academy, the 3 humans stood in Commander Vorthak's office. "We are restructuring our entire curriculum," he announced, "based on what the Academy now calls Human Standard Survival Protocols." "That sounds fancy," Wubin said. "We would like to offer you positions as instructors," Instructor Liss added.